A very good morning to members of ICAI. We extend a very warm welcome to all the participants on behalf of Ethical Standard Board and Committee for Members in Industry and Business on today's webinar on NOCLAR and other applicable provisions of Code of Ethics to members in service. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome and extend our greetings to all the dignitaries for this program. CA Nihar Jambusaria sir, immediate past president ICAI, CA Mangesh Kindre sir, Chairman Ethical Standard Board, CA Ranjit Kumar Agrawal, Chairman Committee for Members in Industry and Business, CA Kamisha Soni Ma'am, Vice Chairman Ethical Standard Board. With this, now I would like to request CA Ranjit Agrawal sir, Chairman Committee for Members in Industry and Business, for his welcome address and opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. First of all, very good morning to Nihar Bhai, immediate past president of ICI, Mangesh Kinere, chairman of the ethical board, Kamisa ma'am, vice chairperson, ethical board, and very internationally ethical standard board. She is visiting since last 6 years and very knowledgeable about the international aspect. And very good morning to all of you. It's a very important session today, jointly organized by Ethical Board and Committee for Member Industry, because this topic deals with the those members who are in industry and starting with the listed company. Friends, you might be aware that the CAs are required to comply with the various code of ethics, fundamental principle, conceptual framework, integrity, objectivity, professional competence, due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. But a distinguished mark of this accounting profession is the chartered accountant are to act in the public interest. A self-interest or intimidation threat to comply with the principle of integrity and professional behavior is created when a professional accountant becomes aware of non-compliance or suspected non-compliance with laws and regulations. You might be aware that we have SA 250 already since 1/4/2009, which talks about the auditor's responsibility relating to laws and regulation in an audit of financial statement. And as far as this responsibility of this SA 250 is concerned, that whether reasonable assurance has been there as far as financial statement is concerned, or the auditor has to create sufficient audit evidence. So, considering this aspect of this, the Institute in 2009 come out with a NOCLAR. And NOCLAR is the non-compliance of the laws and regulation and align our code of ethics with the international code of ethics in 2009. But because of this COVID and other, it is going to be deferred since last 2.5 years. And now it is the time to get it implemented. So that's why we have here to discuss on this very important topic of NOCLAR. And this NOCLAR, the interesting point of this NOCLAR is that it is equally applicable to member in practice and member in industry, starting with the listed company. And NOCLAR in the case of professional accountant, as far as employment with the listed entity is concerned, whether non-compliance with the direct laws or indirect laws which are affecting the survival or going concern of this business houses, that has to be seen. And what are the non-compliance with laws and regulation which a member in industry having a senior position has to see? That is fraud, bribery, money laundering, insider trading, data protection, taxation law, environmental issue, health issue, all these things are there. And in this NOCLAR, which are applicable to member industry, it talks about the responsibility of the senior professional accountant. What are the responsibility of the senior professional accountant who are in a deciding factor, who are in the taking a control of the organization, who are the influencing the board policy and all these things. So they have to understand what are the non-compliance, how they have to address with the management. If the management does not listen, how to inform to the external auditor. If the auditor does not listen, how to disclose to the appropriate authority. All these hierarchy has been mentioned in this NOCLAR, and they have also mentioned about the responsibility of the junior accountant also. So we have expert Mangesh Bhai, Kamisa, Nihar Bhai. They will deal with how this NOCLAR provision is going to be impact the member industry, starting with the listed company, and what are the role the chartered accountant has to play after this implementation of NOCLAR, what are the documentation part, all these things we will discuss. So with this word, I welcome all of you in this very, very important discussion on NOCLAR for member industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening the participants about the today's webinar objective. Now, I would like to request C. Mangesh Kinre, sir, Chairman, Ethical Standard Board, for his special address for today's webinar.
Thank you, Rashmi, for this giving me this opportunity. Respected past president, immediate past president of ICAI, C. Nihar Jambusaria ji, my colleagues in the Central Council, C. Ranjit Agarwal, who is the chairman of Committee for Members in Industry and Service, Kemisha Soni, who is the vice chairperson of Ethical Standard Board and chairperson of Professional Development Committee of ICAI, and my dear professional colleagues, especially in industry. This program has been specifically organized and designed for the members in service and industry. Friends, as you know, the Institute, as Ranjit Bhai has initially given remarks, that Institute has its own set of code of ethics applicable to members in service as well as members in practice. We do a lot of programs for code of ethics on members in practice, but perhaps at least I have not seen such programs organized for members in industry or service as such. So first of all, I thank the members in industry committee headed by Chairman Ranjit Agarwal for collaborating with Ethical Standard Board for this kind of a awareness program. Now, the members in industry, as has been discussed these days, there are a lot of members these days, chartered accountants, new chartered accountants, or even in existing people in practice are moving towards industry, and still there is it is said that there is still a lot of shortage of chartered accountants in industry. So the demand is growing in industry a lot, as well as the members are also moving towards industry. As such, one cannot deny that members in industry play a very important role as regards the brand ambassadors of ICAI. And therefore, forget about what can be the repercussions of not following code of ethics vis-a-vis the disciplinary mechanism for members in industry. But certainly, the ethical behavior of the chartered accountants in industry is going to be a game changer, or rather important from the point of view of ICAI's own brand image and the fraternity, the reputation, or the demand of chartered accountants at large. We all know that the chartered accountants are more sort of the profession in finance, not only in India, but these days even some countries where we have MOUs, MRAs, and some other countries where they don't have any accounting bodies of their own. The demand for chartered accountants in industry is growing day by day. At the same time, the responsibility or the outlook of the people at large, the society at large, the regulators at large is growing, and the expectations are also increasing. Chartered accountants, as it is famously said by our Honorable President of India, APJ Abdul Kalam sir, that chartered accountants are partners in nation building. And here, the meaning of that goes much more beyond the expectations where when it is applicable to the chartered accountants in service. And therefore, code of ethics for chartered accountants is also equally important as it is important for chartered accountants in industry, is equally important as it is important for chartered accountants in practice. And therefore, we thought of doing this program. As we know, this will be divided in two parts. One, of course, at the later stage, we will have a general provisions of code of ethics which are applicable to chartered accountants in service. In an initial part, where I think the CA Asim Trivedi from Indore will be there in the second part. But in the first part, we are going to discuss a very important provision of NOCLAR, that is non-compliance with laws and regulations. As Ranjit Bhai has explained, this provision was introduced earlier. Then, due to the pandemic and era, we were not able to make much awareness programs, discuss about the nitty-gritties, how it is going to be applicable, what kind of things should be applied. And therefore, one can say that this can be a awareness as well as outreach program as far as members in industry is concerned as regards NOCLAR provisions. Friends, these provisions have been deferred because of the circumstances I explained you. And these will be applicable somewhere after the month of September. The purpose of Ethical Standard Board is to make awareness, outreach, and have some suggestions also in this regard. As Ranjit Bhai has explained, that these provisions initially, at least right now, are applicable to the members in service who are in a listed company. And therefore, I would definitely be interested in getting some responses from members who are serving in the listed entities as regards these provisions. The applicability of this is certain. There's no doubt about it. The only point is that whether we can have more explanations attached, whether some doubts are there in the mind of people that how it will be applicable, what is the exact meaning of these terms and phrases used in this NOCLAR scenario. We would like to have some suggestions, some inputs, questions also for that matter, and we will be very happy to address it and go with this NOCLAR provisions in a very holistic manner, taking the fraternity together and taking all the inputs together so that we can demonstrate to the public at large and the regulators also that we are caring for the society and we are serving in the interest of the society in practice also and in the industry also. When we thought about having a speaker for this session, who better we could have got other than C. Nihar Jambusaria sir. We all know that he has been a past president. Not only that, we wanted a person from members in industry. And I think Nihar sir is the right person to throw light as a member who had been in industry and also on the institute platform at the post of a president of ICAI. So he also knows the nitty-gritties and the international scenario. We also have our Kemisha Soni madam, who has been a advisor on International Ethics Standard Board. So she can also give flavor to us as regards the international provisions about the NOCLAR or international scenario about the NOCLAR. So friends, all in all, we wanted to have a dialogue and interaction, the suggestive kind of a session as regards the provisions which are existingly as passed by the council as of now. As I said, that there is no going behind on it. Definitely the suggestions, the inputs, and will be discussed in the Ethical Standard Board as given by the members in industry. We are meeting, Ethical Standard Board is meeting shortly, and we would definitely love to discuss your suggestions and inputs in the Ethical Standard Board. With this, I think I welcome once again all the members of the institute who are present here attending this program on Saturday morning. At the same time, I also welcome Nihar sir and Asim Trivedi who will be joining later for this program. I thank members in the industry committee for collaborating with Ethical Standard Board of ICAI. Thank you very much, and I hope to get good responses from members in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom. Now, I would like to give a brief introduction about the C.A. Nihar Jambusaria, sir, immediate former president ICAI. He is the past president of ICAI for the year 2021-22. He has been a speaker at national and international forum. He has attended and contributed to numerous national and international seminars covering various subjects of professional interest like direct tax, accounting standards, and professional developments and alike. Now with this, I would like to request CA Nihar Jambusaria sir to please enlighten the participants on today's topic, NOCLAR for the members in service. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Rasmiji. The chairman of the Ethical Standards Board, CA Mangas Kinre, Vice Chairperson, CA Kemisha Soni, Chairman of Committee for Members in Industry and Business, CA Ranjit Agarwal, and in the office secretary to the committee, CA Asis, and all the participants who I understand are today from industry attending this webinar. Let me at the outset congratulate both the committees for organizing the first ever webinar to discuss the provisions of NOCLAR, which are getting applicable to members in service as well, apart from members in practice. as both the chairman rightly put it, that so far the code of ethics was applicable to members in practice only and not to members in industry, although generally the provisions of code of ethics are applicable to all chartered accountants, whether they are in practice or they are in service. But this particular provision, which will require special attention of all chartered accountants, whether in practice or in service, are required to be deliberated at length. It has already been mentioned, and you are all aware now, that the NOCLAR provisions which are proposed were postponed because of COVID for some time. And the other purpose, as I remember in the last term, which was discussed in the council, was to let the members be prepared for the provisions for NOCLAR. Now, again, these provisions will apply only to members in service who are employed or who are engaged by the listed entities, and not to those who are in unlisted entities. Again, there is a purpose behind it, because apparently when you talk about these provisions getting applicable to members in industry, they would wonder what kind of responsibilities cast upon them, because there are so many laws in India, and are they supposed to know nitty-gritties of each and every law and then give assurance that all these laws are complied with? I think my immediate answer would be no. It is not that they have to learn all these laws in so much detail. I think I will share a presentation with you first. We will discuss some of the slides, and then we'll come to a point where we will discuss how professional accountants can comfortably discharge their duties on NOCLAR. So let me first put this presentation here, and then we will discuss with slides. I hope this is visible to all. So let us start with this. NOCLAR refers to any act of omission or commission committed by a client or employer contrary to prevailing laws or regulations. As I mentioned, apparently it may look like very broad, too vast, and at first sight one may feel it is impossible to comply with. So let us see what is the way forward. Recognizing that such a situation can often be a difficult and stressful one for professional accountants, and accepting that he has a prima facie ethical responsibility not to turn a blind eye to the matter, NOCLAR was introduced. Now, as the chairman of the committee of the board rightly mentioned, that NOCLAR is applicable in almost all countries of the world, and so it will be applicable in India also. So there is nothing new about it. But how to comply with this, there is a methodology which we will discuss. I will touch upon some of the points, and then later the other speakers will take them up in greater detail. The chairman rightly put that the members who are attending and even those who are not attending may give their inputs. The provisions will be applicable. They will be applicable to accountants in industry and who are with listed entities. Now, if you have some suggestions to add something or even delete something, to have carve out on something, then you can very frankly write to the Ethical Standards Board. And the chairman has already told you that they have an open mind to consider all those suggestions. Coming to the next one, what is NOCLAR? It is part of Volume 1 of Code of Ethics. So in Volume 1, this has been issued as guideline of the council. Now, is this guideline compulsory? So let us look at part 2 also. As a result, non-compliance of provisions of code will be deemed as violation of code of clause 1 of part 2 of second schedule. A member of the institute, whether in practice or not, shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he, and this line is very important, if he contravenes any of the provisions of this act or the regulations made thereunder or any guidelines issued by the council. So these guidelines are mandatory, and if you don't comply with it, then the member would be held guilty. So it is important, it is mandatory. Now, NOCLARs for members in service, its applicability. As I told, the International Ethical Standards Board has made it applicable to all professional accountants who are employees. And now ICI Code of Ethics also makes it mandatory for all professional accountants who are employees of listed companies. Then scope of this regulation. So laws and regulations that have direct effect on the determination of material amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. Please bear it in mind that all those laws and regulations which have a bearing on the determination of material amounts and disclosures in the financial statements, they are all relevant for us. Other laws and regulations, compliance with which may be fundamental to the entity's business and operations or to avoid material penalties, are also relevant. So a professional accountant is supposed to have basic knowledge of all these regulations and laws which have impact on material amounts to be disclosed in the financial statements. And they are also supposed to have basic knowledge of those laws which are fundamental to the entity's business and operations or to avoid material penalties. So to give examples of a few: fraud, corruption and bribery, money laundering, terrorist funding and proceeds of crime, securities markets and trading, banking and other financial products and services, data protection, tax and pension liabilities and payments, environmental protection and public health and safety. These are some examples of laws and regulations which need to be addressed by professional accountants, and they need to give a reasonable assurance that they are complied with. Now, before I proceed further, a question which may arise in the mind of any professional accountant as to how can a professional accountant give assurance on environmental protection, or say data protection, or say even pension liabilities, or banking and other financial products. Now, as accountants, we are supposed to learn laws related to money laundering, banking, tax and pension. But at the same time, every professional accountant may not have expert knowledge of all this. So if I give example of my own job in my company, where I am engaged in tax planning at the company level, where when we consider mergers, we consider some funds to be remitted outside. As professional accountant, I may not be an expert on, say, FEMA or on company law. So we refer the entire scheme that we frame from tax angle to the company law department, to the FEMA department, and take reasonable assurance from them, or rather a certificate from them, that FEMA is not violated. And if suppose they say that it is violated, they would show the way out as to in what way to modify the scheme to comply with the FEMA law. So in listed companies, there are separate departments for almost every law. And where we find that there is no separate department, one may take outside legal opinion. Professional accountant may in writing suggest to the management that these are the areas where we need to take outside opinion to confirm that we are not violating any other law. So this is the way out. I don't think it is so stressful to really ensure that laws and regulations are complied with, and that too those which are related to material amounts to be disclosed and which are fundamental to the entity's business. Not all laws, but those which are fundamental. professional accountants can certainly prepare a laundry list of all such laws, find out whether within the company there is a department which can give a reasonable assurance or a certificate. And if there is no department, if the accountant suggests to the management that here we need to take outside legal opinion, that should solve the difficulty, and it should be the way out. Coming to the next one, matters which really relate to professional accountants. Personal misconduct unrelated to business are not relevant for professional accountants. Non-compliance other than by the employing organization, like if an outside entity has violated some provision which has some impact on the employer organization, it is not something which the professional accountant is required to give assurance about, or to ensure that even the outside organization has complied with law. So that is another point. Then the professional accountant may refer to confidentiality under the second schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act. Wherever confidentiality is a must, those matters need not be disclosed by the accountant. At the same time, if there is an internal whistleblowing policy, ethics policy, then the professional accountant can certainly have complete look at this, and within the framework of this ethics policy and internal whistleblowing policy, he can disclose matters to the higher management, or wherever it is required to be disclosed under a regulation, he can certainly comply with. So confidentiality is one thing, but within the confidentiality requirement of Part 2 of the second schedule to the C Act, there is still certain disclosure required, which can be done within the ethics policy, within internal whistleblowing policy, and where it is required to be disclosed by some regulation. Now, for the senior professional accountants, what are the responsibilities? His responsibility would be to address the matter as far as possible, seek advice wherever required from the internal departments, and seek opinion from outside legal firms, determine whether further action is needed, disclose to appropriate authority if required. And other than senior professional accountants, the junior accountants should obtain understanding of the matter, consult on confidential advice, and certainly junior accountant can consult the senior professional accountants, inform immediate superior, and in exceptional circumstances may disclose to appropriate authority. So this is the framework, and this can be discussed at length. I'm sure the Ethical Standard Board will organize certain webinars to disclose discuss certain nitty-gritties of this requirement, and to offer some webinars with case studies where examples can be given to professional accountants in what way to deal with NOCLAR. Then coming to adoption by members, and here I think visibility is little poor of certain slides, but 1 minute, I will try to. Yeah, so this shows that the entities covered, we know that public listed companies are covered, laws and regulations, which laws and regulations particularly the professional accountant should keep in mind. Listed entities are covered, which I have already told, and where you feel that you require any changes in these requirements, you can suggest to the Ethical Standards Board, and they will certainly take it up for discussion at the board meeting or in the council at the appropriate forum and make necessary changes where required. Then rollout of plan on NOCLAR.
Sir, we will share the slides, these presentation.
This presentation you will share
Yes,
with them.
yes, sir. We are sharing from at our end, sir.
Okay. So then, so far as I am concerned, I think.
So just a minute. There seem to be some issue of presentation. She will share the presentation.
Okay. Should I stop sharing?
Yes, sir. Please stop sharing presentation. I'm sharing here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think in the last two slides, particularly the fonts were not coming properly. But then even otherwise, the message that I wanted to give to all professional accountants who are in employment is clear that in fact, this compliance is not worrisome, particularly when it is starting with listed entities where they have got several departments like company law, legal department, FEMA is dealt with by separate department, mergers and acquisitions are dealt with by separate departments. So whatever a professional accountant has to assure in the accounts or finance department, where he feels that a declaration is required to be taken from the respective department, they can internally seek. And where they feel that they don't have, the company doesn't have internally an appropriate department, they can seek opinion from an outside legal firm also. So this is the way out. It is not that a professional accountant is supposed to know each and every law in so much detail in which a lawyer would really undergo. So it is not that worrisome. Only for a chartered accountant, an extra step that is required is prepare a list of all those laws which are relevant for material presentations of amounts in the financial statements, and at the same time all those laws which are fundamental to the business which is carried on by the entity. So once you have basic knowledge, for further nitty-gritties, you can always refer to the respective department or to a legal firm for an opinion, and then give an assurance that all laws and regulations are complied with. So this is the way in which one may begin. And for guidance of the members on particular laws, I may suggest to the chairman that you can have some detailed webinars with case studies. And even I may give certain case studies where, even I was not aware of certain laws, and then how we ensured that we seek an assurance or declaration from the respective department or outside firm that this law is complied with, or we modified the scheme that we suggested to management that here you need to modify and then implement the scheme. So that is the way out. And let me once again thank the Ethical Standards Board and also the Committee for Members in Industry and Business for inviting me to present some of the ideas and some of the views on NOCLAR provisions which are being made applicable to members in service. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you, Niyar sir. I think a couple of slides that time was not legible, and that is as a chairman of Ethical Standard Board, I would request members to give inputs regarding 2-3 aspects, just to elaborate, because that was not legible, readable. That is, we are making it applicable right now for members in service in the listed companies. Now, whether that is, how far it can go, whether that carve out anything is suggestion is needed or suggestion is there in this regard, that whether it's fine if we go ahead or whether we should have, there has been a suggestion of extending the scope also, whether we can do that thing. Number 2, when we do it a listed company also, whether our members would like to have something more to be detailed in it. Now, how to go? I think Niyar sir has explained it very nicely, that documentation, internal documentation. So that also can be suggested, that how to go about it internally. Thirdly, which laws? I mean, the laws also, whether the internal systems can be revamped, and in that regard, what's a institute you are expected to do? I think Niyar sir has very nicely explained it with his own experience. I think, sir, we have few questions. I think 3-4 questions. We will take those questions first, and then other deliberations, if they are there, we will do it.
Sure.
Yeah. Ashish ji, आप question पूछ सकते हो?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There are. Let me clarify to the audience as well as Niyar sir also. There can be few questions which are, in fact, would be of importance for deliberations for ethical standard board. आपका mic on है? आपका mic on है?
Yes, sir. On sir. So the first question was that will the NOCLAR be applicable to members who are not on roll of the listed entities but are outsourced employees?
According to me, yes, all those who are serving listed entities. NOCLAR should apply to all of them, because when you say members in service, according to me, even any accountant serving from outside who are not on the payroll, according to me, they are practicing chartered accountants. So to them, NOCLAR anyways should apply.
Yeah.
I hope Chairman will agree with me.
Yeah. I fully agree. I mean, the outsourced employee means perhaps there can be a couple of things in this, but first thing, as Niyar sir said, that they deem to be perhaps in practice also. So in that case, it will definitely be applicable. The only thing is that outsourced means, suppose a company who is serving, a company, suppose an accountant company is there, or company hiring a chartered accountants or a manpower supply agency is there. Through them, suppose they are there and getting a contract pay, then also they are employees, indirect employees of the listed entities. Definitely a matter to be deliberated, but as of now, yes, it will be applicable.
Mangesh, since it is open and not clarified, there may be doubts, but I think since a question is raised, probably you may deliberate at ESB if necessary at council and even clarify.
Sure. That's what I said. Even the questions can be some kind of a points of consideration for us also. So that's why I'm encouraging people to ask the question. Yeah. Ashish ji, aage chalo.
Yes, sir. So another question: in case of an organization having its own whistleblower policy, should the whistleblower policy have precedence or the NOCLAR?
I think NOCLAR will independently apply. So it is not a question of who will supersede what, but independently you have to view NOCLAR, see if within the whistleblower policy you are getting certain protections. You certainly should avail whistleblowing policy. But suppose NOCLAR requires something and whistleblowing policy does not cover it, still the professional accountant will have to comply with NOCLAR.
Yes, sir. Very good. Further, Ashish ji.
Sir, there is a third, which is a suggestion, sir. It says that since NOCLAR is new to members in service, ICI should assess the members and the nitty-gritties.
I think it has been deferred for quite some time, and probably learning is a process which can be started immediately. I think you are proposing it to be applicable from September.
Sir, it was to be applicable from 1st April. We have sought 6 months extension, so it will be applicable after the September is over, so October per se. Would just like to throw light on this earlier question. We are also internally, when we deliberated or deliberating that, as regards whistleblower policy, NOCLAR is slightly different from whistleblower policy. If Niyar sir will agree in that, NOCLAR in whistleblower policy, you may simply show red flag and then your job is over. Perhaps NOCLAR goes a little bit beyond that, and you have to get. I mean, if you want, you can get an expert opinion also, as sir has rightly explained. So that is not there in whistleblower policy. Whistleblower policy is where you are simply flagging the red flag, and that there perhaps your job is over. So in that sense, yes, good. The question again would give us some deliberating points, and we will definitely deliberate on that. But sir, yes, the applicability would start from 1st October. We will definitely see, as the question says, and we'll take your guidance from Niyar sir also in this regard, that how to go about it, what exactly explanation is needed vis-a-vis these questions which have been asked, and how we can train in, sir, as rightly mentioned, some taking some case studies, etc. And we'll have some what you can say, roundtable conferences or something of that sort with the regulators and industry bodies also together. So that is plan is there to not only educate the member, but they educate the entire stakeholders at large. What is this? And my member should not be in a precarious situation where the other parties are not knowing what is their obligations. So they should also know the obligations of chartered accountants in right earnest. That efforts will be definitely taken. And we will be seeking such, what you can say, help also in this regard.
Yeah, always with you. And anytime, of course, one meeting last time was there, but in future, any meeting, I would be happy to attend.
Sure.
Whenever you feel.
Ashish ji, aage question hai kuch?
No, sir, that's all, sir. There are other suggestions, but no questions are there, sir.
Thank you.
So suggestions bhi aap bolo na, abhi ho sakta hai to aap, you can just fill out so that, sir, we can take a view of Niyar sir also on that. Ek suggestion aapko theek lagta hai wo le lo, because this is just discussion meeting actually.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, there is one suggestion that the ICI is starting with listed entities only for the time being. So there is no further carve out required.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's good. Yeah. Anything else?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. So similar kind of suggestion. So I think we will make more awareness programs definitely in future. But as far as applicability is concerned, we'll have to do it. Again, you can take it forward, sir.
Thank you, sir, to enlighten us about the provisions of the NOCLAR to members in service and resolve the members' query. Now, I would like to invite Sir Aseem Trivedi, sir, the speaker for the second session. I just would like to...
Rashmi ji.
Yes, sir.
Even if the members want to raise the queries on NOCLAR further also, or send the suggestion also, I think they can send it up, email ID esb@ici.in. They can share their suggestions and queries on NOCLAR or any other aspect for that matter. Yeah,
I just would like to give a brief introduction about him. He's a nationally recognized as an author, trainer, motivator, and consultant for the auditing standards, accounting standards, IFRS, Ind AS, company law, economic laws, and etc. He lectures all over India. He writes and publishes books for CAs and company secretaries. He's a publishing knowledge series for chartered accountants on contemporary issues of the profession. He had given more than 250 seminars at ICI platform on various subjects. Now I request Aseem Trivedi, sir, for his address on the topic, other applicable provisions in the Code of Ethics for the members in service. Thank you, sir.
Before Aseem starts, Niyar sir, you are there or you'll be there till end if at all any questions are there?
Actually, I have one more meeting.
Okay.
About half an hour, I will be here.
Sure.
11:15, I am here. But
okay, sir. Otherwise, we can answer the queries because those members also will be identified. So we can answer the queries and we can discuss it also in Ethical Standard Board. Or if necessary, I will also take up that. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah. Aseem ji.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I think this panel right now, which is sitting here before all the members, I must tell you all that the person sitting here, Ranjit Bhai is here, Mangesh ji is here, Kamisha ji is here. These all persons are tirelessly working in ethical standard boards since long, not this year only. They are working since last 3-4 years, and they have uplifted the whole process of code of ethics to a very extensive manner, in such a wonderful manner that we have our annual report, which suggests that, which explains that how much disciplinary actions have been taken. So I will request members who are in service to go through the annual report of ICI and find out how much work the disciplinary committee and our director discipline is working tirelessly to keep the standards of profession high. Now, as far as code of ethics concerned with members who are in service, my presentation is visible. Is my presentation visible, Ashish bhai? Yeah. So now the problem is that when we are talking about code of ethics for members in service, it reminds me an incident which happened long back when Kamisha Ben was chairman of Indore branch and I was serving as secretary of Indore branch. One surprising query of some of our friends received from Pithampur, that now you guys are there at the branch managing committee, kindly search why the newsletter of branch is not coming to us. We were very much surprised that how the members who are in service are not getting the newsletter of ICI, and they are complaining also that we are not even getting the chartered accountant journal also. Then I requested them that kindly mail your membership number to us and let us search it out. To my surprise, to Kamisha Ben's surprise, we found that 3 chartered accountants who were serving in the industry from last 15 years, no, last 3-4 years, and one of them was from last 15 years. The person who was member from last 15 years had not deposited his membership fees. So his name was striked off from the register of member. And another 2, to our surprise, who were the juniors, they have cleared their CA final examination. And on the basis of their CA final examination mark sheet, they have joined the entity and they are serving as a chartered accountant, though they are not chartered accountant because their name is not there in the register of members. So I should start from there only. Is it a misconduct that we are not, our name is not registered in the name of the member and still we are serving to the society as to the employer as a chartered accountant? Yes. Section 24 of Chartered Accountants Act 1949 will apply to these kind of members, these kind of persons, though who are eligible to become chartered accountant according to section 4 of the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, but they have not got themselves registered under the register of member as per section 8 of the Chartered Accountants Act 1949. And when their name is not there in the register of member, they cannot be said as chartered accountant. And now, if they are designating themselves as a chartered accountant, or they are having their jobs on the basis of this particular basis that they are chartered accountant, it's fault of the employer also that they did not get the membership number of those chartered accountants. Then we, myself and Kamisha Ben wrote mail to ICI that this kind of problem is there in industries, then ICI came out with some guidance to the members, and one circular has also been uploaded on website, that every person who is claiming that he is a chartered accountant must ensure that his name is in the register of the members. That is the height of carelessness which we observed at that particular time. So with this, I'm starting that day in and day out, we have corporate pressures. Day in and day out, we have so many different tasks to perform in a time-bound manner. We need to check unconsciously, not intentionally, unintentionally. Sometimes it happens that we may cross the line, which is called the line of ethics. Though it is very important for all of us to comply with the ethics, but it will definitely going to affect us personally if we cross that particular line of ethics, just because we were not aware about the provision which is there under the Chartered Accountants Act. So let me go to Chartered Accountants Act 1949 first. What are the provisions which are directly affecting you being a member in service? First of all, what I have said, that your name must be in the register of member, and you should deposit membership fees on time, so that the name should not be stricken off from the register. Because once the name is struck off from the register, you will no more a chartered accountant. You will be a person eligible to become chartered accountant. So that is the first thing which I want to convey. Second thing, we are having our own visiting cards as a professional, as a chartered accountant in service. To kindly make it sure that your visiting card should have designation of your own as a vice president, as CFO, as managing director, as country head, or as a CFO, group CFO. Yeah, it is allowed for a chartered accountant to have such designation. But while using such a designation, though we can use prefix CA dot, but we cannot additionally use a designation as a description as a chartered accountant. Means, if I am Asim Trivedi, managing director of a company, I will have my visiting card, I will have my letterhead, I will have my all professional stationery printed as Asim Trivedi, group CFO or managing director, this particular company. And below that, I am writing chartered accountant. So it is not allowed. Though CA Asim Trivedi, prefix as CA is allowed for everyone who is in service or who is in practice. So we can add CA dot before our name, even if we are in service. So I should request everyone, please add CA dot before your name, because it creates a brand. It creates a brand image, because when you are achieving newer heights, the profession will automatically achieve newer heights. So kindly, I request all members to please start having before their name this prestigious two alphabets of trust, which is known as CA dot. We should have, but we cannot have that description as a chartered accountant. And second thing, while you're using this particular designation as MD or director or in any other document, in any other kind of publication, you cannot then use a chartered accountant. For example, you are group CFO of a company. Now you are writing an article in Business Standard. You are writing an article in Economic Times. Then kindly use the designation of your group CFO and group whatever that. Don't use the designation below the name as chartered accountant, because that gives an impression that you are a chartered accountant in profession. So that should not be, that is not allowed actually. So that's why I will request, if you are using the designation as chartered accountant, according to section 7 of the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, you should not use simultaneously two designation. At one document, you are using managing director, group CFO, and all these things. And on the other hand, you are using chartered accountant in your articles, which are to be published on some prestigious sites for professional interest, or in your LinkedIn profile, or in your Facebook profile, or in your WhatsApp profile, or whatever it is. Wherever you are designating yourself, keep one designation only, which you are using as group CFO or whatever the designation is. If you want to show to public that you are a chartered accountant, kindly have prefix before your name as CA doc. That's it. That is section 7, which I found commonly violated section. Then come to Chartered Accountants Act 1949. We have section 22. Section 22 is applicable to both chartered accountants and non-chartered chartered accountant in practice and chartered accountant in service. Section 22 clearly mentions that director discipline has a right to initiate inquiry against a member who has either acted or omitted to act anything which is prescribed under the Chartered Accountant Act 1949. And if I have done any act or omission being a member in service, which is described under either the first schedule or the second schedule, then there will be a misconduct at my part. So if I go to directly to Chartered Accountants Act 1949, the first schedule, which is known as minor offences. In case of minor offences, we have the second part, which is applicable to members in service. And the second part, which is applicable to members in service, clearly mentions that a member in service will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he shares directly or indirectly out of his emoluments any share to any person, including a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants. Let me clarify this. This is a commonly violated clause by fresh chartered accountant. Getting my biodata or my curriculum registered with some site, which is a human resource site, we can not share emoluments of ours as 3 months salary, 1 month salary, 15 days salary for 3 months. They are giving different propositions to secure a job for you. So even in case when we are talking about shifting the job from one company to another company, another company to another company, we can do so, but we cannot share anything out of our emoluments, though that particular human resource company can charge money from that employer where we are joining, but we cannot share a single rupee from our emoluments which we are getting in our new job to secure that particular job to any person, including chartered accountant. Mind it very carefully, I'm saying including chartered accountant. A chartered accountant secured a job for you, and now you are joining that particular entity in which that particular chartered accountant helped you to secure the job. Even then, you cannot share anything from your emoluments receiving from that particular entity to that chartered accountant also, because this is a clear-cut violation under clause 1 of the part 2nd of the first schedule to section 22 of the Chartered Accountants Act 1940. And we found it very commonly violated clauses, and we found that there are certain cases which are coming to ICAI also. So let us be very careful whenever we are securing job. Whatever payment want to be required to be given, let us, the employer, give that particular payment. And mind it, that employer should not recover that particular amount from your salary, because it will be indirect sharing of that particular thing. So if something comes before us as a disciplinary committee or board of discipline that gives an evidence that a chartered accountant had shared his emoluments to secure a job, it is a professional misconduct under clause number 1. Then comes clause number 2 of that part 2 of the first schedule that clearly mentions that a chartered accountant should not get any kickback, either from any customer, either from any agent, either from any client of that employer company in any manner, whether directly or indirectly. So if a supplier of a company gives us some incentive, like he arranges some foreign tour for us, or he arranges some expensive gifts for us, because he is a person who is supplying the goods to company, and we are the person who is there authorized by the entity to give him approval regarding such purchases and all. So we should take utmost care that we should not accept expensive gifts from that particular person. Why? Because that is another point. Because there may be sometimes later, there may be some differences between that particular party and the client itself and the employer itself. And if those differences could not reconcile, and if it is found that the other fellow had charged exorbitantly, or he had the new supplier which came into picture now is alleging that the old supplier had supplied you at exorbitant rates, and why your CFO has not, why your CFO or the payment passing authority or that particular person who is authorizing that purchase was not objecting to it. And then if some allegation which are bound to come from the subordinates who want to have your position, they can raise a finger over you that he is getting gratification, he is getting some gifts, he is getting foreign tours, he is getting something from those suppliers. So, and if that complaint receives to ICI, that's a clear-cut violation under clause number 2 of the part 2 of the first schedule. So we should not found ourselves in any of such situation where we are receiving gratification. Normal gifts are okay. Corporate gifts are culture. On Diwali, on New Year, we are receiving gifts, but they're not expensive gifts. If those gifts are given to everyone in the organization, and that's why it comes to my table, no problem at all. But definitely, if it is it's a very different kind of gift, which is not given to everyone in the company, and it is offered to you only for that particular person, I must tell you that is a problem relating to code of ethics. Then comes the last one under the first schedule, and that is other misconduct. Sometimes it happens that we indulge in such situations where something very unfortunate happened with us out of some emotions, out of some anger, out of some, I must say, prejudice within the organization. We have a strange relationship with certain persons, and sometimes out of heat of the moment, if we had crossed the line and some fight had been there in the office itself. Now the point is that being a chartered accountant, we should behave in a dignified manner. If we have a quarrel with someone in office and that is in such a bad shape that there is an FIR or there is something happened which is not acceptable to the brand ICI, brand CA, then definitely it will fall within the definition of other misconduct. Another very interesting thing, our name came in a racket which was involved in GST tax avoidance or some fake input tax credit has been received by the company. Directly or indirectly, it has been established that the chartered accountant who is in service was involved in that kind of malpractice. That is also not acceptable. That will be also be treated as other misconduct. And mind it very carefully. If a chartered accountant in service violated any of the provisions of any of the act where his offense is punishable for a period of more than 6 months, though he has got bail, but if the offense was punishable for more than 6 months, it would become the major offense. And that major offense is covered under clause number 1 of the part 4th of the second schedule, which is known as bringing that known as other misconduct, and that other misconduct is there under the second schedule, which is called major offense. Now, if major offense is there, name of the member could be struck off from the register forever. In minor offense, Board of Discipline has the power to strike off the name of the member from the register for maximum 3 months. But when it comes to the major offense, which refers to the second schedule, let me tell you, the last clause, which is other misconduct, if we found ourselves indulged in those kind of activities which are punishable, let me clear, punishable for an offense, an offense which is punishable for more than 6 months, then it would fall in the major category. And there, the name of the member could be struck off from the register forever. Now it happens that did this happen any time in the history of chartered accountants? Because as I am discussing with you all these fundamentals, then definitely naturally the question could arise that had there been any cases like this where the chartered accountants have been debarred from they have been their name has been struck off of the register. Yes, in Satyam case, I'm not naming the chartered accountants, but yes, 5 chartered accountants have been their name has been struck off from the register, out of which 2 of them were the chartered accountant in service. Yes, they couldn't become chartered accountant again because their name has been struck off from the register itself with a penalty of ₹5 lakhs. So that is, there are consequences, and there is not only one case. As it was a landmark case, that's why I'm sharing with you. But this happens. We should be careful. We should be refrain from having any such kind of activities. Any such kind of we are refraining from any such kind of activities, but sometimes it is a pressure where we are indirectly, unintentionally, we found ourselves involved in that particular activity. And that is the biggest alarm for all of us, because now the things are not very much in, I must say, friendly manner, because you are daily receiving news that chartered accountant has been arrested, he has been taken to police custody, he had been there in judicial custody, he had been there in judicial custody from 24 days, and he has been found he has been found guilty in that particular thing. Now the chartered accountant had been victimized. I must say, if done unintentionally, then I'll say his victimization has been there. And if he is involved intentionally, then it's okay, whatever the things are there. But we must take care, because unless and until we have our own standing in society as a chartered accountant, till then only our skills are being valued. You all know there are so many people who are having more skill than us, but they have not been recognized in the society because they are not chartered accountants. So this degree which we have, this designation which we have, clearly distinguishes us from others. You can have a little comparison within our office itself. There are some people who are not having this particular education, this particular degree, this particular brand with them. They are not having that much recognition what we have for ourselves in a particular organization. So let's move further. Now, what else is there for chartered accountants in service? The most important thing which we came across many a times, and that is a confidentiality clause. Very important. What happened is, I'm just explaining you one case. There was one chartered accountant was in service in a group where there were so many private limited companies were there, and one public limited company was there, and 3 LLP and partnership firms were also there. So he was within a group, and every entity was within his purview. He's a group CFO kind of, so he had everything within his stride, everything. Now what happened? There was a family division. So when family division was there, so in LLP, some partners gone out, some came in partnership firm, some gone out, some came in private limited company, some shares have been transferred and shifted so that that particular family division could take a good shape. Now, before that division, that chartered accountant was used to take directions from all brothers. As all brothers were director in the company, as all brothers were partners in the firm, as all brothers were partners in LLP, as all brothers were major shareholder in private limited company. So all brothers were used to give direction to that particular chief, and he was used to discharge those things with us. One day, one of the brother seeks certain information from chartered accountant, who was CFO, and the CFO, out of his habit, had delivered that particular file to the other brother, and that brother kept lien of that particular file with himself. That file was having papers of great importance to execute whatever that particular separation agreement was required to do. And now that particular fellow, that particular brother who had that particular document file, which is the most and prime documents of prime importance in executing that particular process of family division, as he was not happy with the division, he was then started delaying the process, not providing those documents. And if those documents are not provided, the further division process execution was hampered. And now the other brother came into picture and said, with whose authority you have handed over this particular file to this particular fellow, because when I took charge of this particular organization, how dare you to share the file with that particular fellow without my permission? You have violated the confidentiality clause. Now get that file from this particular person Otherwise, I will file complaint against you in ICI that you have violated the confidentiality clause without my permission. You have shared information of the entity to that other fellow who is no more in the entity, right? Now, if this kind of practical difficulties are getting in problem, there'll be a big trouble. Another brother is saying, how dare you to appoint this particular fellow as a tax auditor? I said, I was always there to appoint the auditors for every concern, and you have given me power, and I was doing this from last 10 years. So what happened in this particular hour that no, now the things have been changed. So if these kind of divisions are there, if these kind of changes are there, kindly get the roles and responsibilities in writing, authenticated by the management. I must suggest to every chartered accountant who is in service, kindly get the power of attorney in your favor for sharing the information with the departments, sharing the information with third person, being auditor, being expert, being internal auditor, so that no question on our integrity could arise in future that how dare you to share the information with the others. Because confidentiality clause is again a major misconduct. It's not a minor misconduct. Losing confidentiality comes within part 2 of the 2nd schedule. And that too under Council General Guidelines. Violating Council General Guidelines is a major offense. And major offense has to be taken care by disciplinary committee, not board of discipline. So this is again for members in service. This is again a very important matter which has to be taken care of. That is called confidential. Now, if we come to confidentiality, and after that, one more thing, cash embezzlement. Now, cash embezzlement by a chartered accountant in his professional capacity, that is another matter. There are certain entities who are there, and a chartered accountant is there to handle the cash. And chartered accountant who is handling the cash is not handling solo. He is having his own team. Now, important is, if team members have done something, indirectly a finger could be pointed on us also. Hence, we have to be very much careful about that. Cash embezzlement must not be there by our subordinates also, because there may be a finger could be pointed out towards us for that particular point also. Leaving apart, now came the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, which came in a very different manner when we have code of ethics came straight from the International Ethical Standards Board, that is called ISBA. Whatever I have discussed till now was Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Now I am shifting the gear towards the international code, which is also applicable to all of us. And when international code applicable to all of us, so it is my duty to enlighten something on new code of ethics. So what that new code of ethics says, though whatever is explained in the new code of ethics relating to other than provisions of NOCLAR, we have certain things to discuss. First thing, professional accountant shall not allow a conflict of interest to compromise professional or business judgment. Look how international auditing and international ethical standard board requires us to perform, and this particular ISBA code is applicable to us being a member of ICI. Being responsible for selecting a vendor for employing organization. If suppose you have responsibility of selecting a vendor for employing organization, and if your immediate family member is involved therein, which may benefited financially from that particular transaction, you need to have full disclosure to the management and those shared with governance. If you have not disclosed appropriately, and if that allegation came to Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, that our chartered accountant who was in employment indirectly benefited his relatives by appointing them as vendor of the company because he was in such a position where he can appoint that particular vendor. So always the tender which has been given was in favor of that particular relative. And if that allegation is there, and that allegation, what I should say, in last 3 years, that kind of allegations, we are having the top-notch banking sector also. Giving loan to husband's firm. What was that? The same thing. So whenever we are selecting a member, when we are selecting a vendor, immediately family member. Now, immediate family member has been defined in Code of Ethics also. You have the list of immediate family member. Kindly refer to Code of Ethics. You will find who are the immediate family member. So immediate family members of the accountant, if benefited, then it is better to first disclose it to board of directors, disclose it to those charged with governance, that as the deal which is going to be settled with this particular person because he is the best vendor. But unfortunately, he is my immediate family member. So I am disclosing here. If you want that this particular decision has to be, and I want that this particular decision of mine should be reviewed by the board of directors, or board of directors should have separate committee, or the audit committee should consider this particular matter. Once audit committee approves this, I will have this. So let us make it known to audit committee. Let us make it known to board of directors. That is our addressing the threat. I'm not saying that relatives should not be entertained there. If relatives are appropriate firm, they should be entertained, but they should be entertained in a manner that threat of self-interest threat has been removed so that no finger can be pointed out towards us that we have compromised with ethical standards. So one has to be very clear on this particular matter. Second, approving certain investment for the company. These all examples are given in new Code of Ethics, where one of those investments will increase the value of investment portfolio of the accountant or an immediate family member. We are taking investment decisions day in and day out. And if we are taking decisions of making investment of our company into another company, and if our company is taking investment into another company, definitely that other company's share are bound to rise in the market. If they are bound to rise in the market, and if it is proved that member of the shares, myself and my family members are holding those shares, and then this decision came, and if it is done prior, then there will be self-review threat. And if it is done within that self-interest threat, and if it is done within last 1 month or 1.5 months or 2 months where the decision was about to come, that's a price sensitive information which has been shared with the friends and employees and relatives and all, and that becomes clear-cut case of insider trading, and which has a very serious consequence. So these all things, and if a member found guilty in insider trading, this again brings disrepute to the profession. That again goes to the other misconduct. And if the offense has been established and a person has been punishable with an imprisonment for more than 6 months, then definitely it is going to be a major offense under the Chartered Accountants Act 1940. Now, important is, I am talking, I sound very odd, and it is very, I must say, painful to discuss all these things amongst you. And it is not a kind of effort from my side, or it's not kind of a act or gesture from my side that I want to scare everyone sitting out there that you don't do this, you don't do this, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. But everyone knows ethics are like that only. If I'm talking on IFRS, if I'm talking on Ind AS, if I'm talking on Companies Act, if I'm talking on some security laws, then definitely I can entertain you on various matters. But here, it's complete moral science. I can't help it out. So sometimes it may sounds that this guy's making all of he's just scaring us with all these promises. So it's not my endeavor to scare you. I just want to make it clear to everyone that these small things have great consequences, where bigger consequences, where we can be in a deep soup. So that's why I'm talking about this one. Second, with immediate effect, this second, discretion of chartered accountant, if misused to achieve inappropriate outcome. This has been pinpointed by International Ethical Standards Board for international practicing chartered accountants of all 165 countries. So we are now, what I'm talking is not only Indian ethical standard, I'm talking about the global ethical standard. We as a CFO, we as a person who is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statement, where the public is having stake, now making financial statement. So what I'm doing? I am doing fraudulent financial reporting to get maximum benefit for my employer. It is my discretion how much provision has to be made. It is my discretion what should be the useful life of asset. It is my discretion what should be the value of asset. It is my discretion what should be the residual value to be treated for asset. It is my discretion under construction industry that how much percentage of work has been completed and how much percentage of work is yet required to be finished. If I start from accounting standard 1, I can go till accounting standard 29, and every accounting standard, and if I go to Ind AS 1 till all Ind ASs, all Ind ASs are full of accounting estimates, and those estimates are to be taken by, those estimates are to be computed by, determined by us only in the process of preparing the financial statement. So a finger can always be raised over the reasonableness of the accounting estimate. And if it is proved that an accounting estimate has been manipulated to give an unfair advantage to the reporting entity, that is employer, due to which public sector entities who have offered loan, who have offered guarantee, who have offered security on behalf of our employer, they have given guarantee, they have given loan, they have sanctioned grants. And if it is proved any day that something was fishy, and we know that, and even we were directly or indirectly involving in estimation of those estimates who are really manipulative in sense to get that particular thing which was not our cup of tea. So that is known as what? This is known as using discretion, misusing discretion to achieve inappropriate outcome. That is not at all tolerable. It will be other misconduct under Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Whatever we are doing here, will definitely going to connecting the dots with the second sheet, the B part, the second volume of the Chartered Accountant, second volume of the Code of Ethics. So this is first volume of the Code of Ethics, which is connecting with the second volume of Code of Ethics always. Selecting or changing the accounting policy. So let me say that all this is creative accounting. So whenever we are having creative accounting, whenever we are having in window dressing, whenever we are changing the estimates, whenever we are delaying the transaction, whenever we are advancing the receipts, advancing the revenue, delaying the transaction, making capital expenditure as revenue, making revenue expenditure as capital, twisting the provisions, avoiding the taxes, whatever it is. If it is proved that there was a financial fraud, either as a fraudulent financial reporting or misappropriation of asset, definitely this particular code of ethics will going to hamper us straightforward. That will going to affect us. So I request everyone, kindly refrain from any such activities. We should not. That is important. And if we not, then who else? That is very important. Making employer profitable is good. Helping employer to get unjust and illegal advantage is nowhere acceptable. By saying this, that ऐसा तो होगा ही, इसके बिना हम employment में करेंगे क्या? No, sir. It is not so, and not always true. Change the employer. And not every employer is like this. That is very important. So, because we cannot compromise with our own integrity, we cannot compromise with our own image, we cannot compromise with our own professional standing, we cannot compromise with our own status for a person who can change us any day if he found anyone better than us at lower price, a better truth. Then he is not going to have the ethical moralities or some kind of moral attachment to you or some kind of kindness to you. He is a sharp businessman who is your employer. If more caliber person is coming at a less price, he can have detachment with us. And that detachment will be slower, and that detachment will be very fine-tuned detachment. By shifting your profile, by giving you less caliber work, by snatching some rights and powers which were with you at times. What I have to tell you, you all know that, how the things are getting in bad shape. So if he is so detached with us, why we are so attached with him, that's very important, and that has to be taken care of. So discretion is yours to choose an ethical way or to give an unethical support to our employer. That is the another point which is poised there. Then comes circumstances that might create a self-interest threat. If this particular quarter's profit rose to a certain level, we all have stock options with us, which have been exercised. And those stocks are going to have a big jump and we will sell them off. That's called self-interest threat in manipulating the result to get an undue advantage for ourselves. That is there, I'm saying. Then If we come to the next point, pressure. This is the most important, last important point. This particular International Ethical Standard Board have given a guidance that a professional accountant shall not allow pressure from other to result in a breach of compliance with the fundamental principles of integrity, objectivity, independence, confidentiality. And the professional accountant shall also not place pressures on others to make them some compromises. तो ना तो आपको प्रेशर लेना है और ना ही प्रेशर देना है, because the pressure, there are these kind of pressures. Pressure to report misleading financial result, pressure from the government to the PSUs that our PSU must be in profit, pressure from colleagues to reduce, to misstate the income, expenditure or rate of return, to make biased decision, pressure from superiors to approve the process expenditure, though they are not legitimate, pressure to suppress internal audit reports containing adverse findings, pressure to give misleading information to the statutory auditor. There are a number of pressures where we are. Now, should we allow ourselves to work in such pressure and become a vehicle to an unjust and illegal advantage of that particular client in that particular salary which is offered to us? So as a professional, we should be straightforward, we should be honest, we should be sincere, and we should not compromise with our integrity. If we are not doing, somebody else is going to do. That other person should do that. We could not. Because whenever things are taking bad shape, the scapegoat is the chartered accountant. And if you want to become a scapegoat, we can compromise with the integrity. And if you don't want to be in such a situation, let us retaliate, let us change our profile, let us change the job position. Whatever you want to do it for peace of your mind, do it for peace of your mind, and do it for your family itself. Because the body corporate for which we are working is definitely not our life. The persons who are waiting at home are really our life. With these, let me end my talk. I am sometimes outspoken, sometimes I talk like a Baba kind of Sadhguru kind of talks. I'm sorry for that, but that's a moral duty of mine to enlighten on all these paragraphs and provisions. Some more time, if we have chance to talk, we'll have different topics on this particular thing also. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ethical Standard Board. Thank you, Kamisha ma'am. Thank you, Ranjit bhai. Thank you, Mangesh bhai, who is very learned speaker from Mumbai and now Central Council member, and he has a command over the ethical standards. Nihar bhai, our own president. I never say past president because once a president, president forever. So, President sir, thank you very much to call me, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Myself, C. Raj Chawla, Vice Chairman. It has been indeed a very fruitful discussion on the provisions of Code of Ethics applicable to members in service. Yes, sir.
आप क्वेश्चन लोगे कि वो आशीष लेगा क्वेश्चन?
अच्छा हाँ अभी तो
क्वेश्चन है, then Kemisha madam is going to speak for some time.
ठीक है
कुछ questions है सर जी
ठीक
sir, one of the question is can the members who are not holding COP but also not employees engage in consultancy services for clients?
See, it is very clear under section 2 of Chartered Accountants Act 1949, members in practice and deemed to be in practice. If a person who is not holding certificate of practice is performing any assignment, which is generally done by a chartered accountant in practice, he will deemed to be in practice. And if he is not having certificate of practice and giving such kind of consultancies and entering into such kind of advisory services, which a normal chartered accountant could give without having any correlated degree. If you have LLB and you are doing something, no problem. If you have MBA and you are doing something, no problem. But you have only one degree BCom and another degree chartered accountant, and now you are involving yourself into such kind of management consultancy services, I will definitely say that he will be deemed to be in practice, and not having certificate of practice will be an offense under section 6.
Okay, fine, sir. Sir, there is another question: whether submission of internal audit report with external auditors be treated as unauthorized disclosure or sharing of information?
See, under section under standard on auditing 600 610, internal auditor and external auditor can be there and they can communicate to each other, but definitely such communication should be within the clause of confidentiality which is imposed by ASIP 200. So whenever internal auditor is giving information to external auditor, or external auditor want an information from internal auditor, there has to be management and those shared with governance in between. Through them, the information should be shared, because giving direct information to the external auditor or giving or asking direct information from the internal auditor, both are not allowed directly not allowed under any standards of auditing. We can ask internal audit reports from management. We can ask an appointment with an internal auditor to interact with them. Internal auditor can ask to management and those shared with governance to hand over the working papers to external auditor. We even cannot share the working papers with each other because there is a confidentiality clause with us.
Right. Okay. So there is another question. Can a member in service file income tax return on behalf of his colleagues of the same employer?
Sir, if you are doing it in friendly manner without taking any remuneration, you can do that, because now you are doing what? You are doing this in your personal capacity and not in professional capacity. But if you are taking money from them, then it will be treated as you are doing it in professional capacity. You will be deemed to be in practice, and you need to have certificate of practice for that.
Okay, fine, sir. Sir, another question: what are the safeguards which a member in service has to follow when giving gifts as an employee on behalf of the employer?
If we are giving gifts on behalf of employer to third parties,
Yes,
we need to have a particular list approved from employer, board of director, that these are the gifts, these are the gratification which are authorized by the board of director, and the authority has been given to us to distribute it. Or if decision is given to us, that decision has to be approved by someone. So it was not me who was distributing all these gifts and all these gratification. It is management on whose behalf I am doing that. That's why I was telling that everything should be in black and white before doing all these things. Otherwise, there will be a problem that if unauthorizingly I am giving gifts to third parties, one day if third party has been alleged due to some wrongdoings, then definitely a finger will be pointed on me also. That's what I am saying. that we should have an authority from the board of director or audit committee, whatever, whomsoever there is, has to give an authority to us, give a list to us, give a decision-making authority to us that you have to offer these gifts or these gratifications to the third persons.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now there is a question on NOCLAR also. Sir, as the past president, sir, is not there, I will request Chairman, sir, to kindly respond. It reads as under, there are members in practice who are employees after taking permission of ICI. They are having part-time COP. Will NOCLAR apply to them in position as members in practice or member in service?
Yeah, I think good question. But again, NOCLAR is applicable to both members in practice also and members in service also. Now, it is not applicable per qua person. It is applicable qua duty. So, if you are in both practice also as well as in service also, the aspects which you will encounter in practice, the NOCLAR in practice will be applicable in that respect. The aspect one can encounter in service, the NOCLAR in service would be applicable. So there's not much of difference in this. The basic concept remains same. So whatever you are observing in practice in your audits, if you happen to a listed company auditor and observe certain non-compliances during the audit, you have to respond to it. If you are in service in a listed company, at present it is applicable to listed company, that's what I'm saying, and you observe certain things, then there also it is applicable. So, I mean, it all depends on your duties. And in that duty, if something is non-compliance is observed, one has to definitely give the response accordingly. Any other question, Ashish?
No, sir. No
I
more
mean,
questions.
before I would request, Kemisha takes over, I can just tell the members one thing. I would like to, I would request you to go through this section 260 of volume 1. I think if we have Ashish email IDs of all the participants with us, we ourselves can send them an email with the entire this section 260, the aspect which is applicable to the members in service, so that we can get some feedback from them. So over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. Now, I would like to invite Kemisha Soni ma'am, the Chairman, Professional Development Committee and the Vice Chairperson of the Ethical Standard Board, for his concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi. A very good morning. In absentia, Honorable Immediate Past President ICI and today's speaker CA Nihar and Jambu Saria ji, our very active and dynamic Chairman of Ethical Standard Board CA Mangesh Kinare ji. In absentia, Chairman Committee for Member in Industry and Business CA Ranjit Kumar Agrawal ji. Just I would like to mention about him that he was also past Chairman of Ethical Standard Board, and entire volume 2 publication has been revised under the chairmanship of Ranjit ji, and my council colleague C.A. Raj Chawla ji. He is Vice Chairman Committee for Member in Industry and Business. Our esteemed speaker C.A. Asim Trivedi ji, and dear viewers. So first I would like throw some lights on NOCLAR. First I would like to certain inputs related to at international level, as our chairman has also mentioned about that, because our past president has already covered technicality of NOCLAR, applicability, objectivity, responsibility of professional accountant in service. He has nicely covered that provision because he has vast experience in industry also. And regarding documentation, addressing the matter of non-compliances, so he has covered that point. So just I will give you first background of NOCLAR. So that first time that concept introduced in August 12, ISBI issued first exposure draft on responding to a suspected illegal act. And in light of this, the ISBI, International Ethics Standard Board, hold a series of 3 global roundtables to solicit further views and inputs from stakeholders on these proposals. And after that, first time, ISBI introduced finalized provisions, and generally terminology of concept was also changed, and exposure draft on NOCLAR was issued. And ISBA introduced finalized provision on NOCLAR relating to professional accountant in practice and for professional accountant in business in the ISBA Code of Ethics 2016 edition. So it was not new, something new things, and these were made that time applicable ISBA from 2017. And in 18 edition ISBA Code, restructured entire Code of Ethics and brought out new issue in March 18. The provision including of NOCLAR were also largely restructured. And accordingly, the new section on NOCLAR, as Mangeshji has also mentioned about that, 260, and for practicing chartered accountant 360. And about ICI, ICI has converted volume 1 of Code of Ethics with 18 edition of Code of Ethics issued by ISBA. The volume is made applicable with effect from 1st July 20. With the exception, you all are aware about that these all three provisions are already deferred because of this COVID and because of this first time implementation. So that is still deferred September 2022. So as already informed, ICI has converted the provision of NOCLAR for member in service and has restricted applicability to listed entity only. This is the position, but we are working on that, and in the near future, we have a meeting of ESB and council also. So our chairman will regularly will update on that. And here it is also very important to note that generally in case of NOCLAR, accountant is not expected to have a level of knowledge of law, that particular other laws and regulation greater than that which is required to undertake the engagement. That is generally overview on that particular act regulation. So further update about these provisions at international level, the ISBA has come up with the 2021 edition of the code. There are no such significant changes proposed in NOCLAR provision in these editions. And based on the position submitted by various countries in ISBA pertaining to convergence with NOCLAR, many countries made the provision applicable already, while many countries are in process of adoption and balancing the NOCLAR provision with their domestic law and regulation. That is most important in case of domestic law and regulation. So likewise, India too has tried to achieve a balance between NOCLAR and its domestic provisions, especially pertaining to the client and employer confidentiality also. So we hope to bring an acceptable rollout plan for the NOCLAR along with other deferred provision and seek support of members in achieving these endeavors, which is of great importance of the various stakeholders and the government. So Ranjit has also mentioned about that certain type of threat. So I will give 4 or 5 points related to NOCLAR also, because for member in industry, that is very much important regarding that conceptual framework approach, because they will have to keep documentation also related to that. So 2 type of threat will impact on this NOCLAR related provisions. One is self-interest and intimidation threat. Ranjit has already mentioned about that. So identification, evaluation and addressing of the threat. So which principle will affect? That is the principle of integrity and professional behavior. So dear member, please look into that particular 2 threats and 2 principles which will affect in case of application of NOCLAR. Second, reporting and addressing. So generally, what will be the procedure of reporting? As our revised code has already mentioned, if protocol and procedure exist within the professional accountants employing organization to address non-compliance or suspected non-compliance, the chartered accountant shall consider them in determining how to respond to such non-compliance. That is most important. And our volume 1 already said 260.9 that many employing organizations have established protocols and procedures regarding how to raise non-compliance and suspected non-compliance internally. So these protocol and procedure include, for example, an ethics policy or internal whistleblowing mechanism. So such protocols and procedure might allow matter to be reported anonymously through designated channel. That is most important. And just Mangeshji, I would like to mention one thing, because we are planning outreach programs also. So we will have to plan certain meetings with employing organization also and respective regulator also for defining that formats and discussions related to that, what will be the procedure. So it may also be noted that in a situation where disclosure ought to be made by the auditor, the appropriate authority also we have to design, and we'll have to meeting with appropriate authority, and certain procedure we will have to develop. Third important point is NOCLAR related, that new concept is senior professional accountant in service. So that is also generally what they have defined in our international code also. That type of professionals who are director, officers, or senior employees able to exert significant influence over and making a decision regarding the acquisition, deployment, control of employing organizations, human, financial, technological, physical, and intangible resources. So here is also one point we'll have to work on it, related to definition under senior professional accountant in service. So that we can take up in our ethical standard board also, because in certain organization there is a maybe not role in decision making, but they are CFO, they are top position in finance and account department. So that also we have to elaborate and define that particular position. And already Ranjit Bhai mentioned, and Asim ji also expert in essay, consideration of law and regulation in audit of financial statement. So that also will have to work out, and we'll have to give guidance to our member in industry people regarding that, at what extent that provision also will impact on them, because of certain financial statement related maybe violation of GST, SIC, other banking regulations, other provisions will impact on that. And that is about NOCLAR, what I would like to mention about that. And now Asimji, for Asimji's deliberation, I would say that he has nicely covered with case studies and practical example related to day-to-day industry-related day-to-day problems. And he has covered that. Just I would like to mention in one point that inducement, gift, hospitality, so in our revised code extended to professional accountant in service also. And about, again, part 1 and 2 both will applicable to all chartered accountant 1, part 1 and 2 exclusively for member in service and business. So conceptual framework in revised code of ethics, the enhanced conceptual framework emphasized that professional accountants are required to exercise professional judgment, and use of concept of RITP test also introduced. That is all stage of conceptual framework. So that is also one point. RITP test, just I would like to mention about that. That is the this type of test generally we can say that reasonable and informed third party test. So if a third person is faced with a similar situation, the decision he or she takes and the conclusion drawn should be the same as done by the independent professional. And fourth and last point, emphasize on requirement of documentation. Documentation related to NOCLAR 270.4. So just you can also add this point related to documentation requirement. Again, I would request our chairman that we can also define documentation related to NOCLAR, because greater detail required in case of NOCLAR. All steps in responding with NOCLAR to be documented. The accountant is encouraged to document. So regarding that, if you have any suggestion, if you are facing, how do you report to our management and what will be the procedure, certain formats related to document, definitely under ethical standard board, we will work on it, because of this format really will be useful for our member in industry people also. So as I have mentioned now in my concluding remark, dear member, always both volume 1, part 1 and 2 will applicable to all our to chartered accountant in industry, and also about 2019 new concept applicability of provision for member in service to member in practice. That is also important, because in case of for example, situation which provision of part 2 apply to professional accountant in practice would apply, for example, to an employee of a firm who is holding COP. So that provision also will applicable, part 2 provisions applicable to those also. So Mangeshji, because I would also like to appreciate his efforts because under his chairmanship, so many outreach programs, so many meetings we have already organized, because we see your input for this new provision. And also, I think I would like to mention Mangeshji specifically under this outreach program. So what are the output related to that we will consider in our ethical standard board meeting, and we will definitely develop what Nihar Jambusaria ji has suggested and Asim ji has also suggested. We will develop case study also, small questionnaire videos and documentation format. Definitely under your leadership, we will develop that also. So that's it from my side. And now over to our chairman, sir, for further remark or.
No, we will conclude. I think Ashish. Rajbhai,
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful enlightenment about the ISBA version. Now, I would like to request Raj Chamla, sir, council member, vice chairman of Direct Tax Committee, for his vote of thanks, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. It has indeed been a very fruitful discussion on the provisions of Code of Ethics applicable for members in service. I am sure that program will help the members in service in understanding the provisions of NOCLAR and other applicable provisions. I am thankful to CA Nihar Jambusaria ji, immediate past president of ICI in absentia, who has made very valuable point in the NOCLAR to members in service. The topic is indeed very significant for the members who are in employment in listed entities. I am thankful to CA Ashish Trivedi ji, our guest speaker, for his wonderful duplication of the other applicable provision in Code of Ethics for member in service. He has presented the topic very well. I am thankful to Chairman Ethical Standard Board, CA Mangesh Kindre ji, and CA Ranjit Agarwal ji, Chairman Committee for Member in Industry and Business, and CA Kamisha Soni ji, Vice Chairperson, ESB and Chairperson, Professional Development Committee, for conceptualizing and organizing this program. I thank all the members for watching this program. All those who have some questions but have not been able to ask at this form may send the same on esb@ici.in. Keep watching for the forthcoming program of Ethical Standard Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.